Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And it's a few days later. The NFL draft has finally been completed. So, what we're going to do is we're going to
The
evaluate some
aftermath.
teams, the aftermath, which teams won the draft, which teams lost the draft, and some teams that are just kind of right in the middle. So, Tim, are you ready to go?
Let's run it. It sure was an interesting draft.
Yes, it was. Lots of trades, lots of surprises, and some very clear winners and losers. The first one, like always, the Philadelphia Eagles. They had a hell of a draft. Howie Roseman
Howie
masterclass.
Roseman, he just knows what he's doing. I give him a hell of a lot of credit. He seems to every move he makes just seems like it's 3 and 4 calculations ahead of whatever team they're taking somebody from, or moving up to take somebody. But yeah, they had one hell of a day.
Yeah, guy seems like he's playing chess and not checkers, especially with his first round picks, nabbing Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, and then tripling down on the Georgia Bulldogs with Keely Ringo in the fourth, which some people had projected as high as like a late first round pick, maybe a second round pick. That in and of itself is nuts. And like this is just a classic Georgia defense. It was one of the best in college football. So why not add like guys like N'Kobe Dean and Jordan Davis, just add some more Bulldogs right on top of that. And on top of it, he also swung a trade for DeAndre Swift after the Lions inexplicably drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. More on that later. But the Eagles, they had just a fantastic draft from top to bottom.
For sure. Every time they made a move, it was like, oh my gosh, what a steal or what a fleece. All of these moves just seemed like they made so much sense. And how, I mean, I guess for some teams, the teams they made the deal with, it made sense. I mean, for the Swift trade, obviously, once they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, it seemed clear that they had to have been doing something with Swift, or at least marketing him, because there's no way they put 3 running backs on that roster. I know all of us were very confused at the time. But some of those trades, the move up to get Jalen Carter after Carter dropped all the way out of like that top 5, top 6 range where everyone thought he was going, given his talent. And then, man, to be able to wait until the end of the first, just be like, oh yeah, we'll take Nolan Smith. He was projected ADP around like that 13, 14 range, and they got
Yeah,
him at like, what was it, 29, 30, somewhere around there.
31. Yeah,
Was
and
it?
I thought Green Bay was going to take Nolan Smith at 13. And
I
nope,
I was very possible.
flip it.
Yeah,
31. Yeah,
overall, and you talk about getting Keely Ringo later on. Overall, they just seem to make the sensible choice at almost every position, unlike quite a few teams that we ended up seeing.
Yeah. The next winner we had is the Seattle Seahawks. They also had another fantastic draft,
For
especially in the
sure.
early rounds. Devin Witherspoon was really, really good. You pair him with Tariq Woolen, and you'll have an absolutely fantastic cornerback tandem. And then to top it off, Jackson Smith and Jigba, the first receiver off the board. You pair
Wow.
him with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett with that new contract that you gave Geno Smith. That wide receiver trio is going to be filthy. Another thing that really worked in their favor is they had a large number of picks. They had 10 of them, and they
Yeah.
used a lot of them to stock up on positions of need. They drafted multiple defensive linemen, multiple offensive linemen, and multiple guys in the secondary, which is all something they really, really needed. So it was just overall a really, really good draft for Seattle.
They filled a lot of positions in need. Like you talked about, you see they grab a couple of guys in that secondary. Obviously, JSN was kind of that odd man out in terms of bolstering that receiving core. But then you go and add a couple of running backs for some running back depth, including what I actually think was a really solid pick by them, getting Zach Charbonnet in the second round. I think that starts to make a potentially really dangerous running back combo between the two of them, because you've got obviously Kenneth Walker, like he's got the speed, and he's proven over the course of last year when he got that significant playing time, that he can make big plays at the next level. And then drafting Charbonnet, you get more of that bruiser back where you want to get gain some yards on like a first, second and long maybe. You've got two guys I think that are going to be great from out of the backfield. And of course, you talk about that receiving core. My mind says that maybe they think they have a chance of maybe losing Tyler Lockett somewhere down the line, and this could be a bit of insurance for that as well. But until that happens, those 3 guys are going to be insane. And I think this pushes JSN to come out of the slot, which he could be a really dangerous receiver out of the slot here. But
Yeah,
overall, yeah,
absolutely.
a lot of positions that need filled, and I think they did a really good job of picking out guys that made sense at their draft position.
Yeah, one more thing about Jackson Smith and Jigba. He was a natural slot receiver anyway. So
Yeah.
that just allows DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett to play on the outside, and JSN just fits right in there.
There's really
Another,
not going to be any one guy that you're going to be able to pay too much attention to with those guys out there.
another team that we wanted to talk about was the Detroit Lions. We mentioned them earlier. We're going to talk about them more in detail now. Trying to decipher whether they had a good draft or a bad draft. We just kind of like, it was like somewhere, yeah, both, because
they literally they did good and they did bad just at different spots.
Yeah, it was really weird. Day one was 2 head scratchers with Jahmyr Gibbs at 12 and then turning around and taking Jack Campbell later in the first round. Like, I don't really know why they did that. Like,
Let's just say we thought it was weird, or at least a lot of us thought it was weird, taking a generational type running back like Bijan Robinson up at obviously at 8, where he ended up going. We thought it was possibly goes at 10. Even that is, kind of like, whoa, what are you doing? Then they go and take the second best running back off of the board at 12.
Yeah, like, that just seems really archaic to me. That seems like really old fashioned, like what you used to do in like the 90s and the 2000s. When picking a running back early was kind of like the flashy, trendy thing to do. Yet teams are smarter than that now. But then they turned around in day 2 and absolutely knocked it out of the park. Sam Laporta, those Iowa tight ends always turn out to be really, really good. And then they stole Brian Branch.
And that's the one who I thought I was like, hats off to them for somehow managing to stumble into that. If they had managed to fumble that bag, I would have laughed.
They didn't stumble. No, the Packers fumbled that bag because they had Brian Branch right in their hands, and then they traded the pick to Detroit.
Get one later.
Yeah, no, we traded the pick to Detroit,
later,
and no, we watched.
I thought
Detroit
that was crazy. I thought that was crazy. I was like, why as the Packers would you trade that pick to the Lions with someone like him on the board? If you wanted to take him around there,
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just trying to find some logic in it. But obviously, the Lions
don't.
The Lions end up with a big steal there.
Yeah, the less we talk about our incompetence and us looking like the Bears, the better. This is about the Lions. And then they turned around and drafted Hendon Hooker in the 3rd round, which could be the potential successor to Jared Goff. We don't know. It's TBD. Like, that could be the idea that they're going for. Have Hendon Hooker learn, have him
take a shot, take a chance on him. Obviously, he's older for a rookie. He's definitely an upside guy. He is obviously older and coming off of the ACL injury, but he's got room to grow. 100%. And obviously they're not looking for a guy to step in right now, so they're able to give him the time to
they
heal.
Got Goof.
Yeah, they got the goofball out there. So I don't know. Maybe it'll turn out good for them. Obviously, getting him in the 3rd round, I think, is perfectly fine. Some people talked about him going way, way, way higher, which I, of course, didn't agree with. But I think it's perfectly fine for him to go there. So the Lions, they did some pretty decent stuff in like those middle rounds. But I will say, I was scratching my head for those first 2 picks. I was like, huh?
Yeah. Now let's turn around and talk about some draft losers, some teams that we think did not have a very good draft, starting with the Atlanta Falcons. The Bijan Robinson pick was just really, really weird, especially when they needed more at quarterback at that time. Granted, Devin Witherspoon was off the board, but you had guys like Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter, other big-time corner names right there available.
There were quite a few corner names that fell a lot farther than I thought they would.
And then you take Bijan Robinson when you had Tyler Algier as a 1,000-yard rusher last year, and Cordell Patterson
that was my big confusion.
Is also there.
Obviously, we know that Cordero Patterson is not the long-term option. He's older. He's going to be either gone off the team or retiring in the somewhat near future, maybe. But Tyler Algier showed really good, progress and flash last year.
Yeah,
he showed that upside of what he could do. I get with the prospect of Bijan, why he would go high, and the fact of, potential generational guy.
Atlanta.
But the Falcons seemed like the one team that I didn't think would make that move, because they were not a team that were looking for essentially like a big piece to fill into their puzzle. They're looking for the puzzle. Where is their puzzle? He is not a piece that fills in. He's just there.
He's a guy.
Got nobody around him, it seems.
He's just a guy.
Understand it.
Even though they spent the last 3 drafts on position players, because you take Bijan Robinson this year, Drake London last year, and Kyle Pitts the year before that, it's just I guess
still waiting for those other guys to pan out.
I mean, I don't.
there's just so much bigger positions of need, and if you wanted
Desmond
to, I
Ritter,
feel like you probably
go.
could have hopped back a couple of spots
You
and
could
probably
have.
taken him there too.
Dude,
I don't know.
you could have traded back with Detroit and probably gotten him. Who knows at this point? Another thing that I want to address with Atlanta is the depth at O-line is always good because they took multiple interior offensive linemen, but why take two
Yeah.
guards when you just signed Chris Lindstrom to the biggest extension that a guard has ever gotten? I
don't
don't quite
know.
understand that. I mean, the Falcons were just a very, very strange team overall. Another team that we're really scratching our heads with. Well, we're not really scratching our heads. We just didn't really expect them to have a good draft anyway, and they still disappointed us anyway, was the Miami Dolphins. They started behind the
Certainly not much to
ball.
be excited about.
Yeah, they started behind the ball after forfeiting their first round pick, and then they only had 4 picks to work with, and they didn't really do anything with that.
I think they kind of accepted the fact that this draft was kind of just going to be a wash for them. And I mean, I guess work with what you got in terms of
Yeah,
picks
I
and see if you
mean,
can find some diamonds in the rough. But I'm not even all that impressed with the guys they did pick. With
the best
the
pick that
picks
they
they did
probably
have.
had was Devin Achane, the running back from Texas A&M, who they got in the
Yeah, I mean,
third
getting them in the
round.
third round.
Boy, and
I don't know.
then I
It,
mean, yeah, like their biggest need by far was linebacker and edge rusher, and they took a grand total of 0. I understand Ryan Hayes in the 7th round. I mean, in the 7th round, you want to get guys to protect Tua, but they really just stocked up
yeah,
on skill position players, and it was just like you said. I mean,
it
I think the
is
Dolphins just kind of
weird to
accepted
me
that they had to punt the draft, and they did exactly that. They just
because
kind
I
of
mean, here's the
punted it.
thing: their options were trade future picks, or I guess you could try to trade guys in this situation. But most of the time, draft night, you're just talking about trading assets.
Mm-hmm.
So you're either talking about trading future picks to try to move up and get something of worth now, or say, you know what, we're pretty comfortable with what we've got. We'll see if we can find any, like I said, diamonds in the rough of the position
Yeah,
they
but
have,
are they
and then
really
just
comfortable
move
with what they
forward.
have? Is my question, because in the
I don't know.
AFC
It's more of
East,
should they be, not whether they are or aren't, because they may be. I mean, a lot of teams are confident in their franchise. A lot of organizations are confident in the guys they got. But the question is, should they be confident in what they've got?
I
And the
just
answer to
think,
me is,
yeah, I just
I
think in a tough division,
don't
when Aaron
know.
Rodgers coming to the Jets, they upgraded a lot. Obviously, the Bills aren't going anywhere. You have Bill Belichick
Yeah,
and the Patriots. Where does that leave the Dolphins, especially in a competitive AFC in general? Yeah,
especially when you don't know. I mean, will we be able? Will they be able to keep Tua healthy? That's
yeah,
always going to be the question now.
we don't know,
Hard to
but
tell.
the NFL draft has come and gone. We'll see how each of these teams, each of these picks age as the season goes on. But if you want more from us, we have a lot of stuff here on the channel: NFL, MLB, college basketball, and anything else you guys want. If you want to see anything, let us know. But if you want more from us, like and subscribe. And until next time, we out.